Hey, so I'm making a video going over Caustic Arrow, the updated guide for it. So this is not a league start guide, as I'm not putting league start in the video title. This is just a guide for when you can swap to Caustic Arrow. The only reason why I'm not making a league starter is because I do think there's better league starters than Caustic Arrow. It's okay, but I do have a list here. If you do want to like transition to Caustic Arrow as fast as possible, I made some suggestions here. So if you want to do a league starter, New Base doing Toxic Rain. I think Palestron's doing Caustic Arrow / Toxic Rain Ballistas. Or you can just do a generic Toxic Rain Ballistas, and any of these will easily transition into my build. But yeah, I'm not making a league starter because pure Caustic Arrow is just not that good of a league starter. This is more so a build you want to transition to when you have the currency, or like when you have a second character, right? But if you want to play this build, you just play any Ranger build. You can even play LA Deadeye, right? Play LA Deadeye, EK Poison. I can add that here, like LA Deadeye. Play any of these and easily transition into Caustic Arrow. The reason why is because these items are all pretty much all magic fine anyway, so it's not like you need to share any items with any builds anyway. They're all generic MF items. You're not going to share these with a regular build. So anyway, let's get to the, I guess, buffs, changes, nerfs, whatever, to Caustic Arrow. So Caustic Arrow this league should be strictly better than last league. So what did it lose? So it lost tattoos. Now tattoos for Caustic Arrow, you got +1 level of gems right here, and then you just got movement speed, and that's it. So you lost to like 20%, 25% movement speed, and 10% damage. Now I'm almost positive that the Wildwood Ascendancies are going to be better than 25% move speed and 10% damage, right? So yeah, I think Caustic Arrow in this patch should be strictly better, and a big reason why, we'll get to it later of course, is the new Simplex Amulet, which is absolutely insane for Caustic Arrow. So yeah, so let's just go over the budget CA real quick for those who are unfamiliar with the build. So the whole build essentially revolves around Whittle Hail, and then stacking as much quant as possible. So this build is really popular last league. A lot of people played it. I do have a full in-depth note section for this build, unlike my LA build. So if you're not really sure on some things, make sure you read this full note section. I have Q&A section here. I have like every item. So yeah, it's a very in-depth note section. Anyway, yeah, so you're doing Whittle Hail with a really good quiver. Now this quiver is extremely important because you are using Whittle Hail. And for those who are wondering, yes, Whittle Hail is better than any bow you can get in the game. Whittle Hail is better than a mirror tier bow. You cannot beat this when you have a good quiver. If you don't want to make this quiver, I do have a guide on this. I also went over that in the notes section, but yeah. The quiver is the most expensive piece of the build. It's like 30 to 40 divines. This is why you can't like league start it, because yeah, it's a very expensive quiver. Outside of that, the rest of the build is really, really cheap. Outside of Replica Dragon Fangs, which, varies in price. I think this league will be cheaper than last league. Last league, this thing went up to like 20 divines, but I think this league will be less than like 10 divines. So the whole build, probably to swap to it, is probably somewhere around 50 to 60 divines, which honestly is pretty good. And that's kind of was the price last league when I swapped to it. So yeah, outside of that, helmet is basic. MF helmet, just double rarity, mana reservation, max life, right? Greeds, very important here. You need a +2 or +1 greed, so you need a +2 level socket duration, or +2 AoE, or +1 level socket gems. You need like one of those. I do go over here in the notes as well. +2 projectile also works. So yeah, you need one of these. Very, very important as you're putting a Caustic Arrow in your chest, and plus levels is how we scale our Caustic Arrow damage. Sedemas, you need Despair and Hit. Once again, very important. A lot of damage. Make sure you always play with this. As you can see, without, it's like, I don't know, a 15% damage loss without it. Gold Worms, don't need added corruption, but if you do want to get corruption, there's like movement speed, spell suppress, max life, all these are good corruption. Replica Dragon Fang, this was nerfed this patch. Still gonna be best in slot. It's really, well, best in slot until you get the higher budget Simplex, we'll go over in a second. But yeah, +3 level Caustic Arrow gems and mana reservation efficiency, pretty insane. We'll go over to the mana reservation nerf because that does change the build a little bit. Ventures, of course, and then Abyssco's Leash. You do get a Headhunter when you can. Headhunter is really, really nice. And Flask, Jade, Quicksilver, Gold, and Quartz. With the Quartz, Divination Distillate, with like every MF build. So, a couple things I want to mention on the tree real quick. Elegant Hubris, you don't need this exact number. I got this question so many times last week. Don't copy this number exactly. There's so many different Elegant Hubrises that have 40% rarity on this node. Do not copy this number. It's going to be expensive. Just get whatever you can get. There's like, I think 100 different Hubrises that have 40% rarity on this node. Despite not having tattoos, we still want Supreme, because as you can see with our stats, we don't have enough strength, we don't have enough intellect. We do have enough dexterity though. So I think Supreme is still the way to go. Otherwise, you're going to need strength and int on your gear, which you just really don't have the apexes to afford. So yeah, maybe if I find a different solution later on, we can drop Supreme, but the jewel is still nice. You're going to get rarity, and eventually you'll get like double rarity from this jewel. So yeah, that's just one thing to mention is Elegant Hubris. You just want rarity nodes. Max Life's also fine if you get one pretty easily, but this one is double rarity. Cluster jewels. These are 2 prop 1s. When you get 3 prop 1s, are way better. 3 prop 1s are pretty hard though, but 2 prop 1s are really, really cheap. Just make sure for your mediums, you have 1 medium with Spike Concoction. Really important. Alchemist Genius is very strong. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the passageway. Now, one thing I want to go over for the gems, because there was one big change here, and that is the haste, divine blessing, inspiration setup. So inspiration, sadly, we lost divergent inspiration. If I go to the patch notes here, you can see inspiration now has 5% reduced mana cost, where divergent was 10%. So to simulate this in POB, I just put 10% quality at divergent, which is equal to 5% mana cost. Now, fortunately, what this means is we can only get this to 0 mana cost. It's not possible unless you do some janky stuff, as in like maybe you anoint like Dreamer or something, right? Which sure, this would make it cost 0 mana, but it's probably just not worth it over anointing Sovereignty. As I can show right here, if you take off Sovereignty on your amulet, yeah, if you take off Sovereignty on your amulet, you're then missing 60% reserve mana, and yeah, that's not really playable anymore. So yeah, maybe I'll find a better solution later on. Maybe one of the charms from the Wildwood Ascendancies will help out. Maybe one of the tinctures will help out, right? But yeah, as of right now, it's still completely playable, right? You just need more mana as a result of this nerf. So, but it's still completely playable. And one thing we do to help out the cost is lowering Divine Blessing. As you can see, a level 1 Divine Blessing is cheaper to cast than a level 20. So, and you barely lose any movement speed, as you can see, 152 to 149% movement speed. So yeah, maybe I'll find a way to fit in Dreamer later on or something, but as of right now, it's just going to cost some mana, which is fine. Or you can drop haste, but I personally don't recommend it. Still very, very strong for the movement speed, as you can see here, you know, 105% to 149%. So I don't recommend dropping haste. So yeah, that's pretty much the only major change in the skill gems. Everything else is still the same. The only other thing to talk about here is empty gem sockets now. And I couldn't really figure out what to do with these empty gem sockets. I even asked my stream chat, and no one really had a good suggestion. So we essentially have one empty gem socket here now. This used to be a novel's increased duration, and we have one empty gem socket right here as well. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to do with these gem sockets. If someone has a good idea, feel free to leave a comment below. The only suggestion I got was cast on Death Portal, which yeah, I don't really care for. Maybe we can do another Mana Forge hour setup. We certainly can, as we don't really need GMP and Life Gain on Hit on Frenzy anyway. But yeah, that's about it for the budget setup. It's pretty much mostly the same. I think the budget one is like slightly nerfed, just because the Replica Dragon thing was slightly nerfed and haste setup was slightly nerfed, but that's it. We'll move on to the more endgame, and now I think the endgame one is just way stronger, assuming Wildwood Ascendancies are insane, which they are looking to be insane. The reason why is that the Simplex Amulet is absolutely insane for this build. And if you aren't aware, this thing is very easy to make. So yeah, everything else is pretty much the same in this build. You do want to see the quiver, of course. We have a better mana reservation helmet, and yeah, everything else is like the same. Also to mention, a +3 socket chest. This was kind of like mandatory last league for the damage. This league, it's no longer needed because you're gonna +2 off your amulet. So yeah, +2 chest is actually completely fine now. So the end game version of this build, which is usually really expensive, is now actually way cheaper because you don't need a +3 chest anymore. But But yeah, this amulet is really insane. And it's very easy to make. Just to go over how you make this real quick. So you need a Shaper and a Redeemer's amulet. So let's say you have Redeemer Simplex and a Shaper on another amulet. It does not have to be Simplex. So your Redeemer amulet on your Simplex, you roll Mana Reservation. On the Shaper amulet, you roll Quant. You combine them with Awakener's Orb onto the Simplex base, and you're guaranteed 20% Quant, guaranteed 20% Mana Reservation. Now, it's probably going to fill the prefix, so you'll have to annul 1 out of 3, so 1 out of 3 to brick essentially. But if you do brick, you can probably resell it for some value still. But then when you do annul the prefix, you then do suffix cannot be changed and reforge chaos, and this will guarantee +2 level ball chaos skill gems. So yeah, this amulet is really nice for this build. Gives you everything you want, plus levels, mana res, and quant. It might be like 20 to 50 divines for the base. We really don't know how much this is going to be. A lot of people are going to use it, but yeah, this is a new best in slot amulet. Until then, you can use an Eyes of the Great Wolf. You can use a Dragon Fang, right? Dragon Fang is probably what you're going to use until this. So yeah, this build is pretty much the same as the budget build. It's just you upgrade all your gear a little bit more, right? So you're getting like 3 prop cluster jewels, you're getting a better elegant hubris, like double rarity, and all that. And of course, your quiver is want to be pretty insane for this build. So this is your ideal quiver: double damage over time multiplier, max life, increased movement speed, and increased damage for both skills with crafted attack speed. Crafted attack speed can be like crafted res if you need it, but the attack speed's really nice. Outside of that, there's really good Venters. Headhunter, of course. I got this question a lot last week. Headhunter is best in slot. I think it's way better than Mageblood. I think Headhunter is really just a way better MF belt. I don't recommend going Mageblood over Headhunter. It's way stronger. Progenesis, of course. So yeah. Forbidden Flash and Flame, you want Gathering Winds. Another strong one is Quartz Infusion. But I recommend Gathering Winds more so this time around because you're losing movement speed, and Gathering Winds gives you a lot of that movement speed. So yeah, Gathering Winds is the best in slot for Forbidden Flame and Flash, but Quartz Infusion is also pretcher's Eye. Watcher's Eye. You don't need to copy this Watcher's Eye 1-to-1. There's a lot of good Watcher's Eyes. Just like look around for like Malevolence and Haste and Grace Watcher's Eyes. There's a lot of good ones to get. Basic jewels is just life and double multi. If you do want a 4th prop here, you can get Mana Reservation. And if you get enough Mana Reservation on your jewels, you can then drop Mana Reservation from your helmet. So yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions about the build, feel free to leave a comment below. It's pretty much exactly the same as last league. I just updated the POB. And once again, if you have any suggestions for these empty gem sockets, because yeah, I don't really know what to do with these, feel free to like leave a comment. Also, this one, yeah, haste cost 87 mana, which will make cheaper by just making this cost level 1 Divine Blessing, and you have 118 mana. I might try to find a way to fit in Dreamer, but yeah, until then, you just have to use a little bit of mana, which is not really a big issue as you get mana back anyway from Definition to Still It. But yeah, that's it.